Welcome to the merchant's house.
Come on in.
We have the mysterious Dr. Lee with us as well.
Is Dr. Lee wearing a beard? No. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody, come on in. Well, as you can tell, we are in the front hallway of the merchant's house over here on 29 East 4th Street.
Some people have never been here before.
Okay, how come okay, hold on one second. I'm gonna turn these speakers down. We're trying something new today. And first time we're trying this, we're gonna do a remote walk around. I'm trying to turn the speakers off. Can you just talk to our guest?
Sure. So this is a live walkthrough of the merchant's house. And if you've never been here before, if you have just read about it or watched some of the videos, we're going to take you through each room. We're going to talk a little bit about phenomena that's been experienced in each of the rooms with visitors and staff, and also a little bit about what we found during some of our investigations in each room, because there are some rooms here that are more haunted than others.
Right. We'll play some EVP that we've caught in a particular room, and then we've got some video that Dr. Lee, who's here with us, and but he's hidden behind our cameraman, and there he is. That's not him. And but we'll play some stuff that that we've caught with the equipment that Dr. Lee has actually created for the merchant's house, specifically for the merchant's house. So before we get walking around, though, we should talk about a couple of things. One, we need to have everybody sign a letter to help save the merchant's house. There are some evil developers that are planning on putting a 8-story hotel right next to the merchant's house, and the construction would be catastrophic to the merchant's house. They've brought in engineers and architects, and they've all concluded that any kind of construction this close to the house would just be catastrophic. And
you can see all of the beautiful plaster work. This is actually very, very vulnerable to any vibration. And so if there is building directly next door, this plaster work will fall down. And this is considered the best, what they call extant, which means existing plaster work of this era in the United States. So this is like one of a kind stuff that is at high risk.
Right. I mean, this house was built in 1832. So we're looking at stuff that's been there for, coming up on 200
Almost
years.
200 years.
And it's perfect now, and something like construction next door would be just horrible, and it would all this would just fall down. The merchant's house would have to remove everything from the house. I think there's something like a gazillion pieces of artifacts that are here that would have to be stored, and it would just be a nightmare. So let's help save the landmark. And one of the other ways you can help save this landmark house is coming up in a couple of weeks. We do a haunted ghost tours of the merchant's house. They start, I'm not exactly sure of the exact date, but they run these tours throughout the night. The last one being at 9:30, which will be tours that you and I will be giving. And very special tours. We play a lot of EVP. We talk about the things that we've caught. It's really, really great. So please check that out. You have to make reservations.
They book up fast.
Yeah, they're booking up now.
Yes, they are. Yeah, you can go on the website merchantshouse.org and you can book as of right now.
Right, exactly. And so come see the house. It's really cool. We have a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and a lot of chills. So, but why don't we walk around and show you guys the house?
Yeah, so this is the front hall. This is where visitors would have come into the house. There is another entrance, which is downstairs, which we'll see, but that was used only by family and servants. So people would enter through the front door, which you all entered through, go into that beautiful foyer. And then they would be escorted into the front parlor.
I feel like Mr. Rogers.
Sit down.
Hey, come on in. Come on into our lovely home. These are the front and rear parlor. They're mirror parlor, so they're identical. And Dr. Lee, I'll take that because I can play some EVP. So they're identical. This wouldn't be a daily use rooms. This would be for formal dinners, parties, holidays. This is Seabury Treadwell. He's the everything good?
Yeah, no, that's just me.
Yep, there's Seabury
He's
Treadwell.
the patriarch.
Okay.
Please. This is Seabury Treadwell. He was the patriarch of the family. And over here we have Eliza. She was the matriarch. And the very first point that I would like to make about this room is that the front parlor was where the funerals were held.
Mhm.
And everyone who died in this house, pretty much everyone who died in this house was laid out in this house. They would have been laid out here in the front parlor. 8 people died in the house. So, and the body would have been laid out for 3 days. And people would have come, visitors would have come, paid their respects, and then the body would have been taken to the cemetery. So, like so many houses during the 1800s, this house saw a lot of death. And this would have been where everyone gathered to mourn. And this room called the parlor. So because funerals took place in the parlor, that's where we get the name funeral parlor, right?
Every parlor.
Yes. And when the funeral industry really began to rise up in the 1920s and people stopped having funerals at home and moved them to the funeral parlor, Good Housekeeping rechristened the parlor the living room, because it was for the living, not the dead. So there's a little piece of death trivia for you.
That's awesome. I had
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah,
Damn it. That's really cool.
yeah.
And this during a funeral, during a wake, it would be this room would be all dressed. These mirrors would be covered
Covered with black.
black, and these mirrors, everything would be covered in black. And yeah, you do it here. So
Right.
and this piano now is a functioning piano, but this piano is an original piano. It was the Treadwell's piano, where the Treadwell girls would sit and they would practice playing. For years, it was inoperable, but within the last 10 years, I believe, it's been restored and it can actually play. I'm not going to tickle the ivories tonight, but people have reportedly heard the piano being played as they were walking by on East 4th Street. Piano used to be, it was over in this corner, so they could hear it clearly outside on East 4th Street through the windows. And if somebody came to the house, the next day or a few days later and said, "Oh, were you guys having a party here at the piano?" And they would say, "No, the museum was closed that night." So somebody was practicing the piano here in the corner. Maybe Gertrude was brushing up on some tunes.
Yes,
But
because the children did learn on this piano.
Yeah. And we have, because we're talking about the piano, we have a really cool EVP that we caught in Mr. Treadwell's room right above us regarding in the piano. So we'll play that in a little
When
bit.
we get up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll play that then.
Matilda, we got one question of who painted the Treadwell painting?
Oh, I'm not sure we
Yeah.
know that actually.
All right, we can find out.
Yeah, we can find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure we know. I also want to say that it was in these 2 rooms, Lee, when we were doing our investigation,
Yeah.
that Marta saw something,
Yeah,
right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
it was actually downstairs.
Oh, it was downstairs? It wasn't up here? Are you sure?
Well, there was some similar incidences up here, but yeah, that was downstairs. There's incidents up here where actually you and Martha both sort of thought you noticed something in the hallway.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, but yeah.
Right.
Well, the first time I've been investigating the Merchant's house since 2006. And the first time I investigated the house, I had to jump through a lot of hoops. And one of the conditions to do an investigation here is they wanted to set up a 19th century seance. I didn't know anything about 19th century seance. It turns out they're pretty much the same as like a 21st century seance. But we arranged that and had a really, really great psychic medium come in named Richard Scholler from Huntington, Long Island. he came in and performed this really tremendously cool seance, and we had a lot of personal experiences in these two rooms. People were seeing flashes in the corners of the rooms. We had the doors to come in and out of the front and rear parlor. We had those closed, and people were seeing footsteps walking underneath the door and the crack of the door. We opened up the doors, nobody was there, but I didn't see that, but I did see flashes of light in the corners of the room, which was really, really cool. I don't know if that's because we had our eyes, in the dark for a long time and they started playing tricks on us, but they were playing tricks on us during a really, really cool seance. So I'd like to believe that something was happening and we were able to witness it. Now, in these two rooms, I do have two clips I would like to play for you. One of them, and I'm going to stand close to the camera, a very handsome cameraman. One of them is a recording of a tri-field natural EMF meter, which is a EMF meter that filters out man-made electromagnetic fields and only registers changes in the natural or the geomagnetic field. And we had this particular one was placed over here on the northwest windowsill of the merchant's house. I'm going to play this really quick. You'll hear me talking and inviting whomever might be in the room to interact with the little blue box. All right, I'm just gonna ask you one more thing. If you are in this room, and I think we all have a feeling you might be, there's a little blue box sitting on the windowsill over in the corner of the room. If you touch that little blue box, wave your hand over it, or check that blue box, it'll buzz, and we'll know that you're here. So if you can just go over and just touch that little blue box, or wave your hand over it 3 times right in a row. That would be amazing, and we'd really appreciate it. So, all right, I'll stop. Great, thank you very much. Wow, thank you. You know what? Can you touch it one more time, really, really quick? Just touch it. Just tap it once.
So cute.
Yeah, we love that. Great one, but
That's very cute.
that's for me, that is an intelligent interaction. Does that mean that there was a ghost here at the merchant's house? I don't know. It means the electromagnetic field changed around that particular meter. Now, we've had multiple meters in these rooms, and we've said wave your hand over the little blue box on the stairs, on the fireplace, on the mantle, and we've had that happen in command. Could that be some macro PK? Psychokinesis, some intentional psychokinesis, that we wanted that to happen so bad that we actually changed the magnetic field. Lee could probably answer that better than I could. Would that be possible? Could somebody's intention affect an electromagnetic field?
I mean, yeah, if the options are between spirits and that, I mean, they're both equally possible.
Right, exactly. That was a great answer from the scientist. Yeah. And then I've got one more clip to play. This happened right in this room, right where I'm standing, where we had the recorder. There was a mannequin with a wedding dress on here, which is really creepy when you come across those in this house. They have mannequins dressed in the clothes that were left here at the merchant's house. Everything in this merchant's house that you're going to see tonight is original to the house. It was here in the 1830s when the Treadwell family moved in. So you're going to hear a couple people talking about buzzes, and we had a tri-field in this room, but you will hear a voice under us talking, and we'll just play this.
Yeah, I'm hearing a low grade buzz the whole time I've been lying on this floor.
Okay.
So you guys hear that?
I heard
It
that.
sounds like
That's about
no.
I didn't
Play
say.
it one more time for you, Lee.
Yeah, I'm hearing a low grade buzz the whole time I've been lying on this floor.
Okay.
Now, the story behind this, I was working with a psychic medium who had never been to the house before. I had never met her before. And she kept asking if I had recently lost a family member, and I hadn't. But about 3 weeks prior to this, one of my best friends had passed away. He was a paranormal investigator like myself. He's a great EVP technician and a great guy. And she kept saying, I'm getting a brother vibe from this guy, Dan, and he's following us around and he's laughing at us. And that was Garrett's personality. Now, I have checked this. This does not match his voice print. It doesn't sound like Garrett, but it's definitely his attitude. We didn't hear that at the time. It's a legit EVP, which stands for electronic voice phenomena. So, really interesting stuff. And I think while we're here, we should get a quick look down in this beer parlor.
Yeah.
Now you can get up close and personal with all this stuff if you buy a ticket to the ghost tours happening in just a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, and something else about the ghost tours in the month of October, the home is set up as a home in mourning. We have a whole home funeral set up in the living room. And there are some surprises when you go around the house.
Yeah, it's a fun thing.
Yeah.
And Matilda and I do really the best tours. So you should really buy a ticket for the 9:30 shows. They're a lot of fun. So,
Yes.
where do you guys want to go now? Do you want to go to the second floor? Do you want to go to the servants' quarters?
Let's go to the
I think-
servants.
Servants' quarters, we're all going to be out of breath and not be able to talk.
All right, so let's go to the bedrooms.
All right, we'll go up to Mr. and Mrs. Treadwell's bedroom.
Bedrooms. One of the daughters died on the staircase. She fell down the stairs one morning, feeding.
Well, I knew that.
And she passed away. She broke her leg.
Yeah, she died.
Hip or pelvis and got an infection and went. On in the whiskey. So here we are in Eliza Treadwell's bedroom, Mrs. Treadwell. This is considered by a lot of people to be the most active house in the room. There are some,
Room in the house.
did I say house in the room? Didn't I? Really, really tired. Most active room in the house. We've got some pretty interesting photographs that have been taken in this room. Notably right here, which I don't believe they're paranormal, but they could be. But 2 white streaks taken years apart by different people of different people, and has a similar white streak coming through here. This is also where we set up a lot of Lee's inventions to collect data, which we did. We'll talk about that a little bit.
And the mirror.
I'm gonna let's see if you can do a little chat. And I'll look for a picture of the mirror.
Sure. So this mirror over here, actually, Dan is looking for a photograph of it. We had someone take a picture of this mirror and there was a face in the mirror looking back at them. That actually happened on one of the ghost tours.
Actually, this picture was taken in 2005, before I started investigating here. I just zoomed in on it, but you can see that this mirror, while it looks big in the photograph, it's actually
Very
pretty
small.
small. And if you wanted to get yourself in that shot, you would have to be standing pretty close to the mirror or standing way back there, and then you wouldn't be able to take that photo. So really, really cool.
Yeah, I
But
didn't feel much in this room, to tell you the truth.
No?
I haven't ever felt awkward
Yeah,
or weird in here.
The only time I've ever felt strange was like my first day here, and I got all emotional down in the parlor, which I'm not an emotional guy. I don't cry for any reason. And I got all emotional and was blubbering. I was waiting down here for Anthony, and he came down. He's like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, I have no idea. But we can play a couple things we can talk here. Let's see. All right. yeah, this is a really interesting. We were here with a psychic medium named Kathy Nadell. And she had never been to the house before, and she was picking up on a lot of things, and we were asking questions to Mrs. Treadwell to see if we could get a response through EVP. So you'll hear Kathy asking, what happens on Sunday?
What happened on Sundays? Why do you give me an impression something special happened on Sundays here?
Now you hear that in the back. It sounds like, I'm going to tell you what I think it sounds like. This way you'll be able to hear it. It says, I'll play it one more time just so you don't know. This is it boosted.
What happened on Sundays? Why do you give me an impression something special happened on Sundays here?
Now I've got a pretty good idea what it says. I've listened to it on headphones, but if you want to know what I think it says, you got to come to one of the tours. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tease you.
And was that recorded in this room or down in the?
It was recorded in this room.
Oh, cool.
What is this? Okay. I'm going to play another clip. We had an investigator here. She had never been to the house before. I like to bring people that have never been on a paranormal investigation just because it's a different energy, and I think the Treadwells are tired of me, to be honest, and I think they like when new blood comes in. And so we had a girl named Holly who was standing right over there, and she was looking at the mirror. She asks Mrs. Treadwell if she could use the mirror, and then she asked, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And we've got a board member, Anthony Belov. He also speaks, and then you hear something right underneath. So we'll play that now.
Treadwell, is it all right if I use your mirror to fix my hair?
You think Holly's a pretty girl?
You can be honest, it's okay.
Now we hear that. I'm going to play the EVP boosted up a couple of decibels just so you can hear it a little bit better.
Mrs. Treadwell, is it all right if I use your mirror to fix my hair?
You think Holly's a pretty girl?
You can be honest, it's okay.
Now, if you couldn't tell what that said over this little speaker.
Actually, let's ask people in the Q&A section to put what they think.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody, we've got Dr. Lee is manning the Q&As, any kind of questions. So, and I could play a really cleaned up version, but if you want to hear that, you got to come to one of the tours. Yeah, but a really interesting room. Lee, some of the stuff that you had set up here, we don't have, do we have the videos of this?
Yeah, we have some videos, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, so we set up some of your cameras, which capture some really cool stuff, like
Right.
those, what we're calling like zaps, it was basically like those flashes of light.
Mhm.
And then we had some sensors on the floor too, like grid. It
Right.
actually went off very interestingly when I was coming back after not having been at the house for a while, remember?
Mhm.
And so those sensors just kind of went off actually when she was just had entered the neighboring room
Yeah.
out of nowhere. I mean,
Yeah, and the sensors, we had a really big storm one day when these sensors, and the sensors went off exactly like they should have. So they
Yeah.
weren't malfunctioning, they were working properly.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, Lee and I were getting alerts in the middle of the night that, these cameras were picking up some kind of movement, and it was the lights flashing, the
Yeah.
EMF lights.
Yeah.
And we also picked up like what sounded like
Yeah,
breathing
it was
or sounding like a mouse nibbling on something or scratching on the speaker, but it didn't pick up any kind of rodents or any kind of things coming
And you had those sensors set up during COVID when
Right.
no one was in the house,
Right.
right? No
Right.
one was here.
Empty. empty. And, you know, we were getting things at 2 PM. We were getting things at
Yeah.
2:30 in the morning, these little, what looked like little tiny microscopic lightning bolts that would just flash. And they would go sometimes through two or three frames.
Exactly.
What's the significance of that, Lee, when it's going, you
Yeah.
would explain that better.
It makes it a little more interesting because like you can occasionally have a glitch, but like the fact that it was two frames
Mhm.
or more and sort of the flashlight seems to travel within those 2 frames, it suggested that it is something actually moving through the air. And so it could, you know, from a skeptic's perspective, it could be like a solar ray or something
Right.
that, you know, that some
And
sort
it
of.
totally could have been. It
Exactly.
totally could have
Yeah,
been.
exactly.
And, but just strange, you know, we're in a haunted house late at night or early in the morning or early in the afternoon,
Yeah.
but nobody else is here, we thought.
Yeah.
And, we had cameras at the front door, the back door, so if anybody tried to sneak in or was coming in
Yeah.
just randomly to do some work or do some cleaning, we would know.
Mhm.
And nobody came in, nobody left, and, we were still getting door slams. Remember, we heard a couple of door slams?
Along those lines too, there's nobody here, so there's also nobody to like turn on a microwave or turn on any kind of electrical stuff that would fluctuate, so.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. Great point. All right, and now let's move on into Mr. Treadwell's room. Now they have you know, what we'll as we're going around, we'll shut the lights out, shut the door, and we don't have to come around later on. Hey, yeah, we can, there you go. And Matilda, you're a docent here, right?
I am a docent here.
Yeah, so come by and see Matilda during the day. How we doing?
So somebody actually answered the Q&A, they think that it said pleasant enough.
Yes, that's exactly
Exactly.
it.
Ding, ding, ding. Unless that was Miss Pie.
No, it's Lisa Muller.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay.
All right, thanks. On through. Couple of the commodes that they had, this is how they went to the bathroom and, you know, these chamber pots.
So these were not actually here though, right? The builder was.
No, those were not there. There was a rudimentary bathroom set up here,
Okay,
which was taken out.
okay.
And here we are in Mr. Treadwell's room. In a few weeks, if you come and take one of the tours, you'll get to see a lifelike version of Mr. Treadwell laying in his bed. So come on by and check out his sideburns. They're pretty impressive. They're worth the price of admission. So yes, Mr. Treadwell's room. This is where he did a lot of his work. We have his desk here. There's also a smaller room off this, which we're not exactly sure what it was used for. It could have been a small bedroom. It could have been a dressing room for Mr. Treadwell, or maybe a small office for him. But he was retired when he moved in. This was his retirement home, and he did do a little side jobs. He had a little side hustle, loaning money and charging a small interest. And maybe this is where he kept track of who owed him what. So really an important room in the house.
This is the room where people faint sometimes.
Oh, yeah?
Ghost tours.
Right.
A number of people have fainted in this room during the ghost tours, and a number of people have also, this is one of the locations in the house where people will spontaneously smell cigar smoke
Okay,
sometimes, and he smoked a cigar.
Right.
It's something that sort of starts abruptly and then stops.
I've smelled pipe smoke in here, but again, East 4th Street's right there, so you don't know if something's coming through a window. Again, this house was built in 1832. There hasn't been a lot of construction to update this house other than plumbing and electricity, so the windows are the way they were. So could we be getting a draft and some smoke coming in? Absolutely, but it keeps happening.
Mhm.
It keeps happening. So is it the same guy walking by, smoking a cigar, smoking a pipe? I smelled what I thought was like pipe smoke. Also in this room, we did have a pretty cool moment. We were doing an investigation and there were people sitting on the floor. There were maybe 4 or 5 of us. And we were just asking questions. I was sitting on a chair, just as that chair is in that corner. Now, this door that's next to us, that's a closet that they use for presentations now. So there's plexiglass behind that door and they'll put a display behind it. We were in here asking questions, and sure enough, we had a very loud bang. It sounded like somebody had slammed the doors. It was right next to me. I jumped and just about landed in the hallway there. But this door was closed. This door was closed, and Anthony Beloff, who was also here that night, said he saw that door vibrate like somebody had punched it. Everybody thought it was in anger. Why are you angry with us? I think it was just trying to get our attention. You know, it's got to be frustrating if you don't have the tools to make sound waves and communicate with people. It's got to be very frustrating. No one's listening to me. And perhaps that's what caused that loud bang. Also, it could have been, again, some kind of psychokinetic activity coming from somebody in the room. Somebody in the room does have a condition that purportedly causes stuff like that to happen. But who knows? It happened, and we recorded it, and it was pretty startling. I'll play it here. I don't know if it'll sound as impressive as it was.
Does somebody want these lights turned off?
Yeah, so it's hard.
Well, what's that, Dan?
Yeah, you're not gonna hear it good. It's gonna sound much, much better on the speaker I use on the ghost tours when you come in a couple of weeks. Another cool little story I'd like about this room, and I'd like to tell you. Want to walk around? I was in here doing an investigation one night with a colleague, Larry Hewitt, and Larry and I are both on the same page as far as investigations go. And Larry was standing over there, and I'm standing here, and Larry goes, "Dan, don't hate me, but I think I just heard somebody say the word Treadwell." And I didn't hear anything. I was like, "Larry, you're out of your mind," because that never happens. And we're talking, and I'm goofing on him, and sure enough, I hear the name Treadwell. I said, "Larry, I just heard it now." So we're really, really quiet, and we're listening. And it turns out there was an East Village ghost tour, and one of the stops on the tour is the Merchant's House. So the tour guide and his patrons that night, her patrons that night, were downstairs, and she was giving a little history of the Merchant's House. So that's why we kept hearing the name Treadwell. So we figured, these people paid their good money to go on that tour. So we started flashing the lights on and off, and I was jiggling the shutters, and we opened them up, and I was pressing my hand, and nobody saw us until one woman just pointed and started taking pictures, and everybody went crazy. They were taking pictures, we were flashing the lights on and off. And we stopped, they went on our way, and I'm walking back to the A train, and I got a call from a friend of mine who does East Village ghost tours, and she was like, "Dan, you're never gonna guess what happened tonight. I was walking around, I was out in front of the Merchant's House, and I went, the lights were flashing and the windows were rattling." And she goes, "How did you know?" I said, "Well, that was me, and that was Larry, so that was us." She goes, "Well, I owe you guys a beer because I got lots of tips that night." And we did really, really well. Now, we were talking about the piano downstairs. I'm gonna play you an EVP we caught in this room. It's pretty cool. It's a direct answer to a question. You will hear Holly again. It was the same night as Pleasant Enough. And it was probably maybe 10 minutes later, because we did exactly what we just did. We just walked through the little hallway there and started our investigation in this room. You will also hear my friend Rudy Torres have a personal experience at the same time the EVP is captured. Now, we don't hear the EVP as it happens, but Rudy had an experience as that was happening, and he called it out like a good investigator. This way we have all that to corroborate what was going on. Pretty impressive.
Did you know how to play the piano, Mr. Treadwell?
Well, I got goosebumps, and I looked right at Anthony, at Mike over there, and I saw something kind of go by, but it was like almost like shadowy. The hallway? Yeah, I mean, you could have, a lot of people have. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And I'm going to play it, boost it up just a little bit so you can hear it a little better. Again, Holly says, "Did you know how to play the piano, Mr. Treadwell?" And something happens right underneath that.
Did you know how to play the piano, Mr. Treadwell?
Right. Well,
I'm not gonna play all of Rudy's explanation, but I'm not gonna play the real boosted version. If anybody has an idea what Mr. Treadwell is saying, they can put that in the comments, and if we think you're correct, we'll let you know. Otherwise, look up Tor and you'll know, right? So from here, you want to go up to the servants' quarters?
Yes, there's one last story that I want to
Okay.
tell in this room. For any of you who have ever been on any of our ghost tours, you know that we have a staff person or a volunteer that's called a follower that kind of follows the back of the tour group and makes sure that people don't get stuck in any rooms. So we had a staff person that was acting as a follower, and everybody was in this room, Mr. Treadwell's bedroom, and the staff person was kind of leaning against this door like this, looking out to the hallway while the tour guide was explaining about this room. And as she's standing here, she's so she assumed that it was a guest who had gotten separated from a tour that had come earlier. But then when their tour was over and they went downstairs, she was told by the person who was supervising that night that everybody else had left the building, that the only people in the building at that time were the people in the room with her. So, yeah.
That's cool. I haven't heard that story.
Yeah, so it's, she saw the person coming out of the little study and walking in front of this doorway here. And she did notice when they left the room that the door to the study was closed. So it's not as if someone could have come out of the study.
And let's talk about that video we got of like the human shape.
Oh, yeah,
This door?
Yeah, so this hallway, we wanted to do some studies, thinking, okay, we've captured some interesting phenomena in individual rooms. What if we could capture phenomena more often? Where might that be? So if spirits are sort of living in this house as they used to, the hallway is a good place to look because they have to use the hallway to go between rooms, etc. So we set up some sensor grids in the hallway and one in front of this door because we're getting a lot of interesting activity in the hallway. And if you use the theory that, the spirits are using the hallway to get around between rooms, then they also must be going through doors. So we realized that that's kind of would be an interesting way to gauge whether these phenomena were an intelligent phenomena. In other words, if they were acting as people do or not. So we actually set up one sensor grid in front of that door, one sensor grid in front of this door. And we had another sensor grid in the hallway, and we saw the sensor grid in the hallway get activated, and then we saw the sensor grid in front of this door get activated, but not the sensor grid in front of that door. So it's interesting, like, if it is just sort of an overall atmospheric phenomena, you would expect everything to go off, but it was sort of segregated in a way that fits with a human behavior or an intelligent behavior where something's coming down the hallway and then coming to this door in particular.
And in fact, one of the sensors closest to where the doorknob is lit up the brightest.
Yeah, and then around that, there was sort of a vague silhouette of kind of activity that we hadn't seen before. That's
Right.
the general shape of a human and height of the human body.
Right.
And that was during COVID, right? When
Yeah.
no one was here.
Yeah, nobody was here. Nobody was here.
Yeah.
So really interesting, great stuff. And we've got that video. We played down. And let's head up to the servants' quarter.
Yes.
Right. And this is, I believe, this is the stairwell where Phoebe had stumbled and fell down and broke either her leg or hip, or pelvis, something, a lower extremity, and unfortunately passed away as a result of the infection
I thought it was the stairway downstairs.
Is it? I thought it was this one. Who knows? She fell down the stairs and it was hard. Right.
So this floor is offices. This floor is not open to the public, although it would have been bedrooms for the children. Very hot here.
Well, here we are up in the servants' quarters. Now, this room here is done up the way they believe the servants' quarters and their bedrooms would have looked. There are 4 rooms on this level, and now the rooms are used for the collection and the preservation of everything that was here in the house. There's an attic above us.
So what's happened up here?
Well, I'll tell you.
Any record of any activity up here?
Yes, we do, as a matter
Okay.
of fact, we do. When I first started investigating here, all this stuff, this is where the collection is behind me, and this is where they do a lot of their preservation work. But when I first started investigating, this was all open. And was up here with a couple of people doing one of the first investigations. And a friend named Sarah was here. Now, I was with my colleague, whose name was also Dan Tischer. He was introducing everybody. Sarah, it was her first time on a paranormal investigation. And sometimes people with the first time, it's difficult asking questions in the dark to nobody, thinking you're going to get a response from a ghost. So people get a little shy sometimes, and you'll hear me say, ask a question, Sarah. And right underneath that, you'll hear a little response. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to the first thing that Dan says. We'll play a couple versions of this. The Treadwells are messing with us. All right, give me 1 second. You know what? You know what's really cool too? Look at that right there.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out too.
Yeah, that's holding the house together.
Right.
Yeah, so you can actually, from the outside of the house, if you see these sort of star-shaped, I don't know what to call it, like plaques on the outside of the wall,
Uh-huh.
those are basically like the outside of those plants that are holding the walls in from falling outwards.
It's squeezing them in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got this back up. Nice try, Treadwells. Treadwells really like to mess with electronics, and it's a great excuse when you screw up and don't do something right. You can just blame the Treadwells. So you're going to hear Dan Tischer introduce the gang to whoever might be in the home, and pay particular attention to one of the first things he says.
If some you don't have to be afraid, we're here just to find out if you're here, to communicate with you. And after that, we'll be leaving. So we'd love for you to be able to communicate with us. Again, you can rap, tap, knock, touch, you know, whatever you need, whatever you can. So let us know you're here.
Now, that's really difficult to hear. It's very faint. That's what I heard on my headphones when I was listening to this probably a week later. You hear something, you get used to listening for these faint little whispers and voices. Heard that. This is it boosted up a little bit, so you might hear it a little bit better. But again, I'm not going to tell you what I think it says, and you're not going to be able to read it either. So I don't know if anybody wants to give their opinion what we think it says, but this is the EVP that I played for the board and for the museum director. And this is what kind of sealed the deal for me to be here all these years. It really was a remarkable, it caught me off guard when I heard that. And it is a direct response to what Dan says in the very, very beginning. In fact, you know what? I'm going to play it here because I know this is going to get you guys to come on this tour. So I'm going to play it, boost it up. You'll be able to hear it, no problem. Now, I believe it's a little girl saying, I am not afraid. Now, if we go back and listen to what Dan says,
Don't have to be afraid, we're here.
he says, you don't have to be afraid. And we hear what sounds like a little girl respond to that saying, defiantly, I am not afraid. Now, a month previous, we were doing a quick investigation, and we were up here. I was with a psychic medium from New Jersey named Ray Setti, and he thought he was communicating with a little girl, and he was trying to get her name. She wouldn't give her name, but, you know, of course, we didn't hear anything. We didn't capture any VP that night, but he was convinced he was he was communicating with a young girl, a young child. Wasn't sure if it was one of the Treadwells, but he said she was a young girl, 5, 6 years old. And here, it's not a stretch to believe that this could be a young girl defiantly telling, some guy who's up in her servants' quarters to not be afraid. She said, "No, I'm not afraid."
Well, you're right. It's a direct response.
Yeah.
The
And
thing is too, I mean, like you mentioned, like you heard the tour guides on the second floor. We're on the third floor here. You're not gonna hear somebody from the street.
fourth floor, we're even further up. And, it's a Friday night. There's a great bar right across the street. We're not
Yeah.
hearing anything up here.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that couldn't be it.
Yeah.
It's just
Lower
too much of a
probability.
coincidence
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
for Dan to say you don't have to be afraid.
Yeah.
Then we hear a young girl who was maybe communicating with somebody a month earlier
Yeah.
say, "I am not afraid."
Yeah.
And when the people from the merchant's house heard that, slam dunk, and I've been here
Yeah.
ever since. So I love listening to this because it brings back a lot of great memories. And it's also like, the first date. And I've been here ever since. So
And that was here, that was up.
I was in this room. Yeah, I was
Okay.
probably sitting right here when holding my recorder.
Mhm.
And we had, multiple reporters running every time we do an investigation. And for the most part, every voice we catch only comes out on 1 or 2 recorders, not all of them, never a recorder that I'm holding. And also, none of the voices are the same. All the voices I picked up here at the merchant's house, none of them match. Could that be because ghost voice prints aren't,
Well, Mrs. Treadwell's voice,
Consistent.
if that was her in her bedroom, certainly sounds like an old.
it sounds like a woman, and
Even with the.
pleasant enough
Yeah.
is I mean, who says pleasant enough anymore,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, so I mean, all these things that I don't believe in coincidence. And when you have your paranormal investigating checklist and you're checking these things off, too many boxes are checked for it to be a coincidence. Something's going on here at the merchant's house. And could it be us wanting it to happen so bad that we're actually creating it? I don't know. From what I believe the Treadwells pop in and out of the house to see how things are going. According to some really good psychic mediums, they understand what we're doing. Gertrude understands what we're doing. She spends a lot of time here, and so do the servants. They understand what we're doing. They know who we are. They get a kick out of it. They approve of it, and they seem to enjoy it. So that might be why we're getting these interactions where it's somebody's paying attention to me, and I'm going to pay attention back. So yeah, cool place. And
We should get downstairs
Yeah.
because we still have the kitchen.
and listen, see that bell right there? We're waiting for that bell to ring. We're waiting for that bell to ring.
Ooh, okay, gonna go down to the kitchen now, all the way down.
You don't wanna lose you.
Lee?
Yeah.
We're going down.
I should have maybe worked it. Good.
Actually, let's do the family first.
Oh. Yeah, and this would be considered probably the family room. This would be the normal living room that the Treadwells would be spending their daily evenings in. The kids probably brought their homework down. This is where maybe they would read stories to their children. This was
Not for
probably
guests, not for guests.
not for
This is
guests.
family.
No, this is family stuff. Guests were up in the parlors. Now, this room is right up against the sidewalk. If we open up these windows, you'd be looking at people's knees down. We're a little bit below the sidewalk. Nothing has ever happened in this room.
Yeah,
Don't
no.
know why.
It's got a good vibe.
Yeah, it's got a cool
It's
vibe.
not-
I mean, you don't need a bad vibe for something to happen.
No.
But nothing. I would come and,
It's
investigate this
very
place.
pure feeling.
15, 16, 17 years, and nothing's ever happened. I've spent a lot of time here. Now when I do investigations, I just kind of bypass this room, stick our head in, say hello, but I don't really spend a lot of time here. Time is better spent in some of the more active rooms. But really, it just gives you a sense of what the Treadwell's daily life was like, sitting by the fire, telling some stories, reading the newspaper. Over in some of the display cases, you can see, I don't know what they have displayed there now. Last time when I was here. Oh, okay. They don't. Last time I was here, they had a tea set with Mr. Treadwell's name and on them, and really spectacular.
Actually, I got a EVP from this.
Did you? Oh, really?
What
Remember
was
we
it?
were talking with you and we actually had finished what we thought was sort of the ghost tour and listening for EVPs and stuff, and we were just having our own conversation. And somebody brought up the book, The Alienist, which is it's a fictional book, but like historical fiction based on the.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, and I asked who had written the book, and before I think you answered, or maybe somebody else answered, we heard actually an EVP of a voice answering the same thing. Caleb
Carr, yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
He's a great Civil War writer as well. He writes Civil War books. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so that's kind of what triggered me to be like, oh, cool, this might be something here.
Oh, so this was before we even really started hanging out, and oh, wow.
This is the first time we met, I think. Yeah, he took me on like a little EVP tour. Yeah.
A really special room for us.
Yeah.
Your first time.
It's our
This is when
first.
you broke your cherry.
That's right. You always remember your first.
Yeah.
But really, just a pleasant room and a fun room. I mean,
Yeah.
we're laughing and joking here, and that's the kind of vibe that this room gives off.
Yeah, I love this room. I think this is my favorite room.
Really, Mr. Treadwell's room was my favorite room.
The kitchen is my least favorite room. So
Really?
maybe we should go there now.
Okay, yeah. You hate that room?
I don't like that room. And there's an EVP I want you to play in there, Dan. You know what I'm talking about, right?
It's a guttural voice, not necessarily.
It's not a voice. Yeah,
Oh, I thought that was Matilda whispering.
no,
I
I really do not like this room. I always have a bad feeling in this room,
Huh.
always.
like bad what? Like,
I don't even like to
Okay.
be in this room alone during the day. Yeah,
oh.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got no issues with this room. I really don't have any issues in any of the rooms. The rooms that affected me the most here are, I would say, probably Mr. Treadwell's room. I feel fine and feel comfortable in. Like Mr. Treadwell's room is that room to you, Mr. Treadwell's room to me. And right in the middle of the front and rear parlors, if I stand there long enough, I do get a weird kind of emotional feeling. And I usually just blow it off, but it only happens when I'm standing right in there. And I usually smell the fireplace. Yeah, so here we are in the Treadwell's kitchen. It's a setup probably pretty close to the way it was for most of its life here. This stove isn't the original stove, but I believe it's a period stove. I think it's from the same period as when the Merchants House, the 1850s, 60s, mid 1800s. So it is a period stove. Now the reports are that this stove shakes and rocks. We're also right above right down the road block from the West Fourth subway.
That's a pretty
Station.
heavy stove.
It's super, super heavy. No, I'm not saying it's not, but it could be,
Mhm.
you know, it could be.
This is also the only place Gertrude has been seen.
Coming down the stairs and coming in here.
No, that's a different story, I think.
Okay.
So the story I heard is the assistant to the director before Pi.
Mhm.
His name was Mr. Something. I don't remember. He was the director for a number of years and he had the same assistant for a number of years. And she was in this room, which is what we call the modern kitchen. It's kind of like where there's a fridge. She was in that room. The door was open. She was doing
Wow.
and she knew it was Gertrude, obviously,
Right.
because she had seen photos of her. So,
Yeah, really, really cool. And this pie case, which is really, really cool. I love this. I just touched it and everybody, I'm gonna get emails now saying, don't touch anything, because look, Dan. But if you look closely, this tin, you know, all the perforations are pointing in so that we don't scratch ourselves when we walk by. But back in the day, when this was a actual pie cabinet, these were reversed. And the reason they were reversed was to keep bugs out. Bugs couldn't get in the holes if the perforations were pointing out. And the bottom legs were in bowls of water to keep vermin from climbing up. And you can see the legs are very worn on the bottom, probably from sitting in these bowls of water. It's really kind of cool.
well, Dan, I think to close out this tour and this room, you need to play the demon that you recorded.
I don't know if it was a demon,
Yeah.
but
Okay, play that one and then the demon.
okay. So we've been talking about how you know, in this room that we were just in, it's a very pleasant feeling. I love Mr. Treadwell's room. This isn't a scary place. And I've never been scared here, and I've never been scared listening to any of the EVP that we've captured. I just don't get scared. You're scared of things you don't understand, and I have a pretty good understanding of what might be going on. I don't get scared here. However, there's an EVP. Now, this EVP I'm going to play wasn't caught in this room. I like playing it in this room because it's one of the last EVPs we play on the tour. It really kind of freaks people out. This has not been edited in any way. This is exactly how I heard it through the headphones when I originally listened. So this is raw audio. Yeah, just take a listen and sorry.
Where was this recorded?
Upstairs in Mr. Treadwell's room. So you hear, play it again because I was talking.
So the little black boxes with little labels, you want?
Yeah, so it sounds like a young girl saying, I don't want to do anymore. When we do the tours, a couple times people have, you know, I said, well, what do you guys think? And some people have some really dark responses of what the girl means when she doesn't want to do anymore. I don't like to go there. I don't think anything like that happened here at the Treadwell house. I think this was a happy, healthy, vibrant house where nothing like that happened. There's no records of anything like that. It's a nice, happy home. Why this happened, I'd like to think maybe she was next door and didn't want to do any more homework or whatever. I don't think there's any kind of dark meaning behind what she's saying. I think it's a little girl crying. Again, however, we have this. Now, part of the investigation when we're doing something here at the merchant's house is we will set all our recorders, turn them on, turn some cameras on the doors, all the doors, the entrances and exits of the house, and we'll go down the block. There's a diner down the block and grab something to eat for an hour, 90 minutes or so. Let everything run. Shouldn't hear anything. We should hear normal noises for a house in New York City. Sirens, people yelling. But we got this. Now the recorder was right on that windowsill, and it was about 63 minutes into the recording, and we catched this. I'm gonna play it, boost it up.
That's a demon.
That's not a demon.
Or somebody's belly probably.
It's somebody's
No
belly.
one was there. No one was in the
I
room.
know.
The house was
It
empty.
could have been one of the treadmill bellies.
Yeah, voices, they have bellies too.
I have listened to that lots of times, obviously, and I have inverted it, played it backwards, inverted it upside down. I've tried every which way to kind of change things to see if I can decipher any kind of noise or words, and there's nothing. One tour a few years back, we had somebody say, "Hey, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like an alligator growling." I don't know. You think of those stories about alligators in the New York City sewers. I don't think anything is coming up here in the merchant's house.
And
I haven't seen any alligators in the merchant's
there's
house.
no running water in
There's
this
no running
room, so
water
there
now.
couldn't be a drain.
We do get if somebody flushes the toilet upstairs, we do get a whooshing sound through these pipes, but we don't hear any noise before or after that. It's just an isolated, strange noise happening in the corner of a haunted house on East 29th Street that conducts paranormal investigations and ghost tours around October. A couple weeks from now.
Yes.
So that is our tour for tonight. Look at that, perfect timing. And so we're gonna log off now, but we want to say thank you for tuning in and coming on this little walking tour with us. And go over to the Merchant's House. What's the website?
Merchantshouse.org.
Right, go to the merchantshouse.org. It's not difficult to find where you can register for our spirit and science shows, which we do once a month. Not sure when the next. We're
We're not doing October because we're doing the ghost tour. So the next one will be November, topic TBD.
TBD. Okay, great. Looking forward to that. And but yes, thank you for tuning in and bearing with us on this new sort of way of doing these tours. We hope to see you in October. They're a lot of fun. Go to merchantshouse.org, find oceans that take people around are fantastic. Matilda's one of them. She's amazing. I've taken her tours. So come on down, enjoy it, and help save the Merchant's House.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good night, Dr. Lee.
Okay.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you. Does this say end or leave?